Hi all, it's been a minute. So recently I have been really, I want to say thinking about, but it's not really about the thinking, and that's precisely the point here, is how much of our decisions can we really make through the thought? How much of what we know is what we know through the mind, and how far it can take us. And I think if we look for the answer in contemporary culture and the way most of the society relies on the mind and the thought and the way we prioritize intellectuality, and I wouldn't even say intellectuality, but I guess the fact that, remote jobs and kind of a lot of thinking jobs that require thinking, that became there's so much demand for it. And the fact that we think that's kind of where we solve all the problems, where we figure things out. Recently, I have always been along, hearing that debate of heart versus head, and, and there was kind of never really a straight answer to that either, because it's like, well, you can just feel it in your heart, or like you feel it versus you think it. And I think now I feel like every time I have to say I think, I have to really think whether it's something that I think, but of course it is a thought. And recently I have been realizing that a lot of the things that I thought, like, oh, this is something I feel, therefore this is truth, a lot of times it's those feelings are just reactions to my thoughts, and that's the reason I feel this way. And it's not necessarily, I can't say it's not the truth, because it is the truth in that present moment. It's true to what is happening. I don't want to kind of deny and reject it, but it's not as simple as I feel this, therefore I kind of just go and follow it. It's not about resisting it, of course, but it's not necessarily acting on those feelings and taking them as face value, I would say. And interestingly, to this whole discussion, this whole thought process, to me, this is happening right now as I'm putting this into words. But really, it comes from a place of, and it's very hard with words because I'm trying to describe it, but it's almost like there's always that danger of misunderstanding. If I'd say a feeling can be created by thought, so it's easy to misjudge. I would just say something that coming from inside that I have no control over, and it's just so much more than me and more than feeling and more than I know. And that something is what keep happening in my meditation, but not just happening in my meditation as it is, but it's happening involuntarily and when I'm thinking of certain things. So there has been a decision that I'm battling with, and as a good student of psychotherapy, I always check in with my body. I'm like, okay, let's close my eyes, let's see how this feels before we make the decision. A lot of times I couldn't tell exactly how it feels. I know my mind can get in the way super quick and super fast before I can even, process it. But something very interesting that happened is that my hands start making a mudra. And it's not even a mudra that I ever did in my practice in yoga or meditation, so it's just so involuntarily. And in the beginning, I just felt like it's like this, right? And I just felt like, oh, it's just pointing me to my center, so this is the center of decision. But then when I start to pay attention, I'm like, wait, I'm actually making a mudra with my hands. And so I went to Google it and see what it is. And it's actually, well, it's a real mudra. And okay, let me pull it up. It's called Uttara Bodhi Buddha Mudra. Considered the most powerful mudra for healing the body and the mind, this particular mudra heals by raising the energy of the body and the mind to a higher spiritual healing platform. The energy from the root chakra moves all the way to the crown chakra. Well, the interesting part about this is that it just made me reflect on all the spiritual knowledge, but specifically in terms of yoga and mudras and meditations and kriyas. And the reason that, like how, because right now we do connect, different fingers with different organs of the body, and, there could be some science to it even. And there is more science to it now in terms of meditation and what it does to your brain and all that stuff. But I mean, back in the day when all of those things were developed, it's not something that, came from science. It's not something that came from the mind. And to me, it was always fascinating in terms of the postures, because I felt it and I experienced it, and I was like, well, I tried to rationalize, well, just physical activity and this and that. But it is a very specific sequence of postures and breathing and other things. So the fact that it happens involuntarily just made me think of that there is some high intelligence within, and it's manifesting itself in the moment, because whatever my thoughts, my decisions, something is very much aligned with it. It came into that alignment. But it ultimately made me think about all that knowledge that has been derived through the practice, through the body, through something other than the mind, right? It wasn't like something that can sit down and be like, okay, so this is something that is going to make my brain expand or something, right? And this is a great thing for my lungs, and this and this and this, and then they piece it together and make something that is very mental, very mind made. And maybe that's why a lot of things don't work or stop working or stop being authentic, because they just, they just fall apart. And I don't know what happened in this moment. Like this has been coming up to me recently a lot. And it's very hard to speak about this in words. It's very hard to explain it in some way, because I wanna, the message here is that, and I don't want to say through the practice, because yes, 100% through the practice you will get there, but at the same time, there's something about your own truth, about your own practice. It's something about me looking at different decisions and paths I can take, and seeing one and feeling something in my body around it, and something happens. And I didn't get there because, to be honest, through anything. Like, I kind of recently, I stopped seeing a therapist. I mean, other things are happening, of course. I started doing more Kundalini yoga, and there is other things, and I'm sure they're affecting me. But it's not something that I can pinpoint to, and some of it is just experience. And from that experience now, I'm like, hey, I think this decision is a better one to make, even though it's so hard. But again, it's not that I sat there and I rationalized it all together. It was more like, just it feels, and I don't want to say right, because, and that's the decision in its own way. If I would went the other way, it feels good too. It feels good because it satisfies something in me, satisfies some other desires. But that to me and my body moving in such ways just means like, well, that's the spiritual alignment. And again, I could not choose it, and I feel like that's the thing. It's also about values, right? It's like, what is of the higher value to you right now? And I'm not saying one should be over the other, but I guess throughout my own experience, I came to realize that the spiritual path is usually, it does feel more liberating, it does feel easier, it does feel, it doesn't feel so difficult to walk. Because even though it does feel very difficult to walk at times, but the other one, it just feels like I'm running in circles sometimes, right? Like it's a constant chase of pleasure and pain, and it's fun for a while, until I guess it's not. And yeah, and you just have to choose something else. Thank you for watching.